On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another show. This show has a specific theme, or at least the second part of the show has a specific theme, and I wonder if you can guess what it is. This is a rendition of one of my songs from about 30 years ago, and it's called Holding the Fort. The fort in question being Charlie Fort, who said that you measure a circle beginning anywhere. Now that's what I call sophisticated.
I really like the old credits.
Some of these objects may be unnatural. Some of these objects may be blasphemous. Some of these objects may be perverse. Some of these objects may turn your stomach. It's show and tell.
Okay, I found this on eBay the other day, and I want you to do an unboxing, a box opening, and talk about it. I'm sure you know what it is.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, can you hold it up so the camera can see? Okay, boys, what is it?
That is a Draco lizard or flying dragon. The most famous one is Draco volans, but there's a whole load of species. These are agamid lizards, which have wing-like extensions. They're the ribs. Actually, they're the ribs that stick out, and they have flaps of skin between them to make these sort of pseudo wings. And they did get a fair bit bigger than this, and they can glide from tree to tree. They don't have actual flapping flight. They glide from tree to tree, and they can glide for hundreds and hundreds of feet. I've seen them wild in Sumatra, and the ones that I saw had canary yellow on their wings, and I saw them flying about, or rather gliding about, in the jungles of Sumatra when I was hunting the orang Pendek, which was fascinating. And they're called flying dragons because of their resemblance to the dragons of legend. A true dragon would have 4 legs and 2 wings, unlike the wyvern, which only has 2 legs and 2 wings. Take note, film and television people. And Charles Gould, the Australian naturalist who wrote a very interesting book called Mythical Monsters, postulated that the dragon of legend was in fact a gigantic monitor lizard, far, far bigger than the Komodo dragon, although the Komodo dragon wasn't actually known when he wrote the book. But an enormous monitor lizard with very similar wing-like extensions, fins made from extended struts covered with skin on the side of it, that it would have used for display and possibly a venomous bite. And he thought that the dragon of legend and would have been this gigantic monitor lizard with these wing-like structures. And he postulated that it lived in Asia, in the warmer parts of Asia.
It needs casing.
It does need casing, yeah. You ever kept these?
No, never even seen one.
I've kept them in captivity. But
Have you?
Yeah, I've kept them in captivity, but you don't see them glide so far in captivity, so they're not as spectacular as when you see them
I
in
did
the wild.
try and get the butterfly farm because I thought it'd be nice to actually have them loose because they could actually fly about.
Yeah.
But they would have been hard to keep a track of and feeding and whatnot.
It's got to be put into some sort of a...
Want me to case it for you? Yeah.
This was not a setup, Carl. I bought it. I bought two things, and the next one, which I haven't got yet, unless it's arrived today in the post, is far more magnificent than that. And
That's just a little one. They get quite a lot bigger than that.
how big do they grow? Golly.
Is that a different species?
It's not the same as the one I saw. The one I saw had canary yellow.
That apparently is the red masked flying dragon. But there's all sorts of different...
I think that's just been injected with formalin. I don't think that's actually been stuffed.
It would be hard to stuff something that small.
And they do them, but you don't have to. You can just inject them straight away with formalin.
But if you could put it into some sort of display. This wasn't a setup. I didn't suddenly think, I have my own pet.
Pizza!
Yeah, that's fine. I can make a cake.
I didn't think, I have my own pet taxidermist around here. Let's just... No, this is purely just... I didn't think of it until...
Did I ever tell you about the time John and I had gone off to do one convention, and we got a friend of ours called Mike to look after the house and the animals, and we said, I've got a fridge full of food, so help yourself to the food, Mike.
Freezer full of...
And freezer, and we got back and he hadn't touched any of the food, and I said, well, didn't you have any of the food, Mike? And he says, no, I sent out for food. I said, well, why don't you eat some of ours? And he says, well, I went into the fridge on the first night and saw a box of beef burgers and took it out, and it had a dead turtle in it. And we'd been using our freezer as a cryogenic unit to preserve this turtle in a box.
That's quite normal.
It was perfectly normal for us.
Yeah.
I remember once Richard came back from Russia, and for weeks there was a plastic bag of stuff on the kitchen table, and Karina said, what's in the bag? And I said, I don't know. And this is about 3 weeks after Richard was back. She opens the bag, and it's full of human finger bones. And it had just been left on our kitchen table. But I tell you what, boys, you're not going to believe the next show and tell thing, which isn't going to be arriving for another couple of weeks because it is coming from France. It is a real wow. At the beginning of the show, I promised you that the second half would have a theme. Have you guessed what the theme is yet? I wonder. I think you should have a bit of Schubert. Da 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 da. Did that help? Have you got it yet? I suspect not, because when I gave this clue to Louis, he told me that he'd never been taught about early 19th century German classical composers at school because they spent too much of their time on emotional expression painting. And you couldn't make this up. So Charlotte, what do we have there?
We have a package that Jonathan has received, which is about trout.
Well, I hope it is. Otherwise, you'll be opening some weird package that's come from somewhere in the world from one of my dodgy hippie friends. And God knows what's in it. I quite like these unboxing videos. Does it count as unboxing when it's not a box?
Yes. I mean, it looks like there is a box though, so.
It's not an unparceling video. No, it's a box.
It's a box.
When I was a little boy, my godmother, Auntie Phil, who used to send me books every Christmas and birthday, she always sent the books and they were always wrapped in whatchamacallit, I can't think of the bloody Kleenex boxes. Okay, so what is it?
It's from Heresy by PBM Allen.
PBM Allen, and what's the book called?
Well, I just said from Heresy.
From Heresy?
From Hearsay? Heresy? Heresy.
That's Heresy.
Yeah, that's what I said. From Heresy.
I thought I bought a book about
Oh, Trout. Trout Heresy. I misread it.
Trout Heresy. That's it. I wonder. Well, you know what heresy is.
Vaguely.
You know what a heretic is.
Yeah.
A heretic is somebody who practices heresy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you get burnt at the stake for talking something about trout. The reason I wanted that book is not that I'm particularly interested in trout, but PBM Allen wrote 4 lovely books on moth collecting, and I've got 3 of them. They're amongst my favourites. And when the other night I saw this on, I was talking to Richard Muirhead, and I saw this on Facebook, not on Facebook, on eBay, and it was only a couple of quid. I thought, well, I've got to buy it just to see if his books on fish are as good as his books on insects, which might probably sound like a silly way of wasting £2.50, but
It's
I
just
think
£2.50.
I think so. So I'm now going to have a look at it.
What football team do Trouts support? I don't know. What football team do Trouts support? They support Lake Town Wanderers.
So, have you guessed what the subject of the theme of the second half of this episode is yet? Yes, you finally got it. It is...
Who's the big freshwater fish who's a sex machine with all the chicks? Trout! You're damn right. But no one understands him except caddis flies.
So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you finally guessed it. The subject of today's extravaganza is Salmotrutta, the brown trout, and its relatives, because there's all sorts of interesting stuff happening at the moment. Have a butcher's at this.
It's a novel, isn't it?
So, Carl, what have we got there?
This is a tiger trout, which is a hybrid between the American brook trout and the brown trout. This one was caught in Letts Lade, on the edge of the Cotswolds, back in, what was it, 2000
In 2002.
2002. So this is quite a large one, and they're usually quite a bit smaller than this. This is probably the biggest one we've ever seen.
Is this a natural hybrid?
They do naturally hybridise. I think this one might have been farmed because it's so big.
I was wondering that because it is an enormous fish.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything like that, Richard?
No, I've never seen a trout with those markings on it, anything like it.
It's more attractive than both the brown trout and the brook trout.
I think it's absolutely gorgeous. But it's so big, but you've got something over there which dwarfs it.
Mm.
Let's see if we can swap it over.
one is heavy.
Now, I had no idea that trout got anywhere near that size.
This one is about half. Well, they get about twice as big as this. This is I can't remember how heavy it is. How much does it weigh again, Richard?
14 pounds.
£13.
13. So yeah, it's about half. They get about twice that sort of size.
About twice the weight of a baby.
Yeah, it's a big one. This is the biggest one we had at home. But we used to do a lot. My father's done much bigger ones than this.
When you say bigger, you mean it's not that it's longer.
No,
but
no,
deeper.
not necessarily longer, but a little bit longer, but a lot deeper.
I had no idea trout could get that big. That's what I would have thought of. If I'd seen that in a river, I'd have just assumed it was a salmon.
Yeah, it's a nice one, isn't it?
Wouldn't you, Rich?
Yeah, probably, if I'd just seen the back of it.
And there's all sorts of other trout variants. There's something called a Ferox trout.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's supposed to be huge, isn't it, the Ferox trout?
Yeah, you get them in the top of Scotland a lot. In fact, I think that the origin of the Loch Ness monster might even be to do with Ferox trout, because they're very powerful fish. I know a story from the 1830s of a fisherman trying to catch something in Loch Ness, and he was nearly thrown out of his boat by the power of the fish as he tried to catch it. And I have a funny feeling that might be involved in the early stories of the Loch Ness monster.
Well, if you can imagine a fish as big as that one is, that's pure muscle.
Yeah. He broke his line, took out about 80 feet of line in a couple of seconds, tipped his little boat over almost, and he almost fell in the water.
Because I think there's a tendency, isn't there, Richard, within British cryptozoology, everybody thinks in terms of eels, whales, catfish and pike. But no one remembers that trout and salmon can get so bloody big and powerful.
I mean, there's big and there's big. I mean, you can't explain something like the Loch Ness monster with something that size.
Oh, of course not.
No, not observations, no.
No, but the stories of things pulling fishermen out of their boats and
Ferox trout are very powerful fish. But then again, the report that I found, it seems too much even for a Ferox trout.
well, Scottish. It would be a giant Ferox trout that had come up from Glasgow.
I think this particular fisherman, he came to the conclusion that that he thinks that Loch Ness has giant Ferox trout in it. That was the conclusion he came to.
I hope you're impressed with those two giant fishes which I caught myself in the Titanic struggle.
No, you didn't actually. My dad made them in his workshop.
Well, I'm going to have them for my dinner.
No, you can't, Archie.
But I'm a famous film star, I am. You can't speak to me like that.
No, Archie, you're not Lassie. You're a very naughty boy.
Ready when you are, Richard.
When trout go on an exotic cruise in the Mediterranean, how do they go? I don't know. In a fish boat.
This is, I think, a very interesting story, which, although it's not about a trout, it's about a species of salmon, it has quite a few interesting parallels with the stories we've already been talking about. This is an American pink salmon, which is normally found in the Pacific, but which was introduced to fish farms in Russia in the 80s and 90s, and which, guess what, escaped into the Atlantic. And with the numbers of sailor, the Atlantic salmon, slowly falling, it is becoming more and more of a worrying invasive species. As you can see, this is the salmon that has the pink flesh, which usually ends up in your cans of pink salmon flesh, which you buy in a supermarket. But this one was caught, guess where? In the River Ness. So, as well as the idea that Loch Ness is home to some enormous and incredibly powerful Ferox trout, it's also apparently becoming home to an invasive species of Pacific salmonid who shouldn't be found anywhere on this side of the ocean. In fact, on this side of North America, let alone in a Scottish river. So I think, guys, this is all very interesting and you should really watch this space.
Give them tough.
What is a trout's favourite doctor? I don't know what is a trout's favourite doctor. Patrick Troughton. If you want to support us and help us make more content like this, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer and I are telling you, please remember to ring that notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when we've got another show.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learnt stuff. And I hope the fact that we laboured the point with our Trout Spectacular didn't annoy too many people, because I like trout. Oh, by the way, the piece of music that Hennis was humming badly and out of tune was by Franz Schubert and was called The Trout. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode. We'll be back in 7 days' time, but I would like to just thank the people who were involved in this time, because there were more people than usual. So this time I'd like to say thank you not only to Carl and Louis and Graham, but to Richard, to Wally the comedy rhinoceros, to Hennis, and of course to Maxine, Charlotte and Sarah, who do all their fantastic stuff behind the scenes that nobody ever pays any attention to. But I want to give them a big shout out because I love them all and they deserve it very much indeed. Now, it may be the end for this week, but you've only got another 7 days to go, because next Saturday afternoon I'll be back, because Saturday afternoon is on the track day. And at 3 o'clock I will be here waiting for you. So if you are going to be there waiting for me, I'll be seeing you.